Greetings at Cheating Story Lab. Share your location below. Today's tale revolves around the instant I grasped that blood isn't always synonymous with loyalty, and sometimes the edifice you construct can transform into your own imprisonment. She dismissed me from my own invention, so I reduced their domain to ashes. I never imagined I'd be in this position, narrating to you about how my son morphed into a stranger and how his spouse twisted my life's endeavor into my worst nightmare. Yet here we are. I am Vincent, and for a decade, I invested all I possessed into crafting something I believed would endure eternally. My son Connor had always been exceptionally intelligent, possessing a keen mind, natural leadership, the type of individual who discerned opportunities where others perceived impediments. When he proposed his business concept to me in 2014 during dinner, I didn't falter. "Dad, I wish to establish a digital marketing agency," he expressed. I possess the vision, but require capital and someone with business acumen. At age 52, I had established and sold 2 prosperous enterprises, and I was seeking my next endeavor. Crucially, I desired to collaborate with my son. My father and I never had that opportunity as he passed away when I was 25, before I truly grasped the essence of manhood, fatherhood, and life partnership. Thus, I agreed, not only for financing Connor's ambition, but also to serve as his co-founder, business partner, mentor. I liquidated investments, took on mortgages against my home, and invested nearly all that I had into Apex Digital Solutions. Our early years being challenging with 18-hour days spent in the office, surviving on coffee and determination. I managed operations, finance, law, and human resources while Connor focused on client acquisition and creative strategy, making us an ideal pair. Father and son constructing something remarkable together. By the 3rd year, we employed 15 individuals. By the 5th year, we were earning $2 million annually. By the 8th year, we had offices in 3 cities and a client list resembling a Fortune 500 directory. Connor served as the company's public figure, the innovative individual adored by many. I provided the necessary support to ensure flawless execution, and I was immensely proud, indeed, incredibly proud, not only of our accomplishments, but of what Connor had transformed into. He became self-assured, esteemed in his field, and most significantly, he appeared content. We dined together every Tuesday, just the 2 of us, discussing business, life, everything. Exceptional moments marked my adulthood until Melissa emerged. We met at an industry gathering in Las Vegas in early 2022. She was stunning and charismatic. Employed by a competitor of ours, Connor was instantly smitten, and within 3 months they were virtually inseparable. Within 6 months, she relocated to our city and spent most of her days at our office. Initially, I attempted to appreciate her, as she demonstrated intelligence about our business, and Connor seemed more content than ever. However, minor details grated on me. Her frequent interruptions of our Tuesday lunches with urgent calls, the gradual encroachment into strategic planning meetings, despite not being employed by us, and the subtle manner in which she questioned my decisions in front of staff. Essentially, she addressed me using my first name instead of addressing me as Mr. Patterson, just like everyone else. Doesn't it seem sensible to modernize our communication systems with clients? Some aspects appear outdated. I held my tongue. She wasn't incorrect about our systems being old, yet functional and secure. Changing them would consume months of productivity, and it wasn't her decision to make. However, Connor began listening to her earnestly. They got engaged in September 2022, marking the beginning of changes. Suddenly, Melissa had opinions on everything: our hiring processes, office culture, expansion strategy, and management structure. Connor needed autonomy to expand the company, she told me one afternoon. I hesitated. Our partnership of 8 years functioned, but was it efficient? She questioned. Connor had a vision for the company's direction, and some traditional approaches might be hindering us. The wedding took place in March 2023, and it was beautiful. Connor looked happier than ever. Despite my growing doubts about Melissa, I hoped she would adjust to her role as Connor's wife and stop transforming our business. However, I was mistaken. Within 2 weeks of their honeymoon return, Melissa was in the office daily, not just visiting, but acting as what Connor called his strategic advisor. She had her own workspace, business cards, and ideas about running the company. The first major disagreement arose in May. I was negotiating a contract with a significant automotive client. 8 months of work, nearly $500,000 in revenue at stake. Melissa deemed the proposal not innovative enough and convinced Connor to rewrite it using an experimental strategy she'd read about. We lost the contract. Our conventional approach would have won it easily. When I confronted her about it, she said, "Sometimes you need to take risks to grow." She wasn't just questioning my methods, she was actively sabotaging them. Over the following months, things worsened. She convinced Connor to restructure our management hierarchy, effectively diminishing my role to senior advisor. She introduced expensive new software systems that many employees couldn't use properly, hired 3 of her former colleagues from her old company at senior levels without consulting me. But the breaking point came in August. I was reviewing quarterly reports on a Wednesday morning when Connor knocked on my door. He looked uneasy, as he had since his teenage years asking to borrow the car. "Dad, we need to talk," he said, closing the door behind him. We sat down across from each other. It felt different. "Melissa and I have been discussing," he started, and my stomach dropped. Nothing good ever began with those words. "We think the company needs a clearer leadership structure as we move into our next growth phase." Connor was saying that shared leadership was causing confusion in our expansion plans. Investors wanted to see single leadership. Employees needed clarity on who was truly in charge. A chill settled in my chest. "Son, I am in charge. We both are. That's how we built this." He paused. Looking away, Melissa concurred that I should assume command of operations. "However, this leaves me wondering where I stand. You would still be involved, perhaps as a consultant or on our board, but day-to-day tasks and strategic decisions would be mine." This revelation struck me like a blow to the stomach. As I pondered 10 years of my life, money, expertise, connections, reputation, and even my own son was asking me to step aside so his wife could exert more influence over our company. "Connor," I cautioned, "you need to reconsider what you're saying. This company exists because I made it possible. My investment, experience, relationships with half our clients. I understand that we aren't asking you to leave completely, just to trust me to lead." His expression hardened. "Isn't it unfair?" he questioned. "6 months ago you valued my input. Now you want me to step aside. And the only thing that's changed is your wife has decided I'm the problem." We argued for 20 minutes, not loud or dramatic, but devastating. My son, my partner, my greatest professional achievement was asking me to become a stranger in my own company. That night, I couldn't sleep. I wandered around my house looking at photos of Connor and me over the years, building the business, celebrating our first major contract, opening our second office. I pondered all the sacrifices I'd made, all the opportunities I'd passed up because I believed in what we were building together. And so, I made a decision. The next morning, I called my lawyer, Richard, requesting him to review every legal document related to Apex Digital Solutions, partnership agreements, incorporation papers, investment structures, everything. He found something interesting. When we'd incorporated the business, I had carefully protected my investment. I owned 60%, Connor owned 35%, and the remaining 5% was held in an employee stock option pool. Moreover, our partnership agreement required unanimous consent from both founders for any major corporate decisions, including changes to leadership structure. However, there was something else, a clause I'd forgotten about from our 3rd year of business. When we'd taken our first major loan to expand, the bank had required additional collateral beyond our business assets. I had personally guaranteed the loan and put my house up as security. But there was a clause that stated if the loan wasn't fully satisfied, the guarantor could assume complete control of the business to protect the collateral. Although we'd paid off that original loan years ago, we'd taken 3 more loans since then, each time using the same structure. As of August 2023, we still owed nearly $200,000 on our most recent expansion loan. I was the personal guarantor on every single one of them. 2 weeks later, Connor asked for another meeting. This time, Melissa was with him. "Dad," Connor said, "have you thought about our conversation?" I had, and I looked at both of them. These two people who thought they could erase a decade of my life with a polite conversation and a new organizational chart. "I think you're right, Connor. It is time for a clearer leadership structure." Relief flooded his face. "I'm so glad you understand, which is why I'm terminating our partnership effective immediately." The room went silent. "What does that mean exactly?" Melissa asked, and for the first time since I'd known her, She looked uncertain. It means, I said, opening the folder I'd brought with me, that as the majority owner and primary creditor of this company, I am exercising my right to dissolve our current structure. I slid copies of documents across the table. These are notices to our clients informing them that Apex Digital Solutions will cease operations in 30 days due to partnership dissolution. Connor's face went pale. Dad, you can't, he whispered. But I can and I am. You wanted clear leadership, son? You got it. The clients, the employees, everything we built, all of that is mine because ultimately, with my money, collateral, and legal responsibility. Melissa was frantically reading through the documents. This will destroy the company's reputation. No one will ever trust either of you in this industry again. I smiled at her. It will destroy the company's reputation, Connor's reputation, but not mine. The silence in that room was deafening. You're taking our clients, Connor whispered again. I'm taking my clients, the ones I brought in, the ones I've maintained relationships with for nearly a decade, the ones who called me directly when they heard rumors about management changes at Apex. What about our employees? Connor asked. I've extended job offers to anyone who wants to join my new company, Patterson Digital Strategies, filed yesterday. 12 of our top clients have already agreed to transfer their contracts to my new firm. The next 3 weeks were chaos, as Connor tried to negotiate and find a way to save Apex Digital. However, he couldn't secure financing or persuade me to return. Melissa fought until the end, but the legal structure was ironclad, and the business relationships were personal. On September 15, 2023, Apex Digital Solutions closed its doors permanently. On September 16, Patterson Digital Strategies opened for business. I kept my word about everything. Every employee got their final pay plus severance. Every client received professional transition support, and every debt was satisfied in full. Connor and Melissa moved back to her hometown 2 months later. First, I heard he was working as a marketing director for a mid-sized company, making a quarter of what he used to earn as CEO of Apex Digital. Patterson Digital is doing well. We're smaller than Apex, but profitable, efficient, and growing steadily. I have 12 employees who genuinely respect what we're building together, and clients who trust my judgment. Do I miss my son? Every single day. Do I regret what I did? Not for 1 second. Sometimes the people we love most are the ones who hurt us deepest. I built Connor's dream. He chose to hand it over to someone who saw me as an obstacle to be removed rather than a father to be respected. I didn't destroy Apex Digital out of spite. I destroyed it because it had already been destroyed the moment my son decided his wife's ambitions were more important than our partnership, our family, and everything we had built together. But here's what Melissa never understood. You can't fire a founder from his own foundation. You can push him out, but the foundation goes with him. That's a lesson Connor learned too late, and one I hope none of you ever have to learn at all. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. Drop a comment and let me know. Have you ever had to walk away from something you built to protect what you valued most? Don't forget to subscribe for more real stories about betrayal, revenge, and the complicated relationships that define our lives. Until next time, remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's proving you never needed them in the first place.